Macmillan Audio presents The Perfect Comeback of Caroline Jacobs by Matthew Dix. Read for you by Cynthia Hopkins. Chapter 1. Caroline Jacobs rose, pointed her finger at the woman seated at the center of the table reserved for the PTO president and her officers, and said it. Shouted it, in fact. In the cafeteria of the Benjamin Banneker High School, surrounded by crowded bulletin boards, scuffed linoleum, and the lingering smell of chicken nuggets, Caroline Jacobs had shouted a four-letter word. The four-letter word. The room fell silent. This was the first time that Caroline had spoken up at a PTO meeting. It was the first time she had spoken publicly in any forum since high school, and the first time in her entire life that she had fired off an expletive in public. These were the thoughts racing through her mind as she looked across her trembling finger at the target of her scorn. With that one word, Caroline Jacobs had been transformed, if only for an instant, into someone she was not, someone entirely new, someone she both wanted to be and never could be. The silence that followed her outburst was filled with a palpable sense of discomfort. Several people turned their attention to the proposed budget, flipping through the stapled pages in an effort to avoid eye contact with either combatant. Eric Feeney, the father of twin girls and one of the few men in the room, bent over to tie his already tied sneakers. The women sitting beneath the race-to-the-top bulletin board stopped knitting, their long needles frozen between stitches. Even the refrigerator silenced its thin rattle. No one moved. The woman to whom Caroline's four-letter word was directed, Mary Kate Denali, recovered quickly, converting her initial reaction of shock into a prefabricated facade of disgust and condescension. Caroline wasn't surprised. Mary Kate Denali was well equipped for this sort of verbal combat. She had spent her entire life conquering sidewalk fiefdoms, forging parental alliances, and coalescing suburban power. This was her life's work. She was a master in the art of indignation and passive-aggressive backstabbing. She was a Navy SEAL of PTO politics. And Caroline, without weapon or training of any kind, had just stepped onto the field of battle. She had opened fire on a hardened veteran of many skirmishes, and while her accusation had been leveled with uncommon force and precision, it had bounced off her opponent's armor like paperclips shot from an elastic band. Mary Kate, now fully recovered and back in control, rose slowly from her seat, her thin waistline and cashmere twin set on full display. Standing up was good, Caroline thought. She wished she had thought of it first. Instead, she was unable to move, frozen in place by the eyes of more than 36 people who were shifting glances from Caroline to Mary Kate and back, awaiting their next move. But Caroline had no next move. Her actions had been as much a surprise to her as they had been to everyone else. She had nothing left in her repertoire. In truth, Caroline Jacobs had no repertoire. Tom Jacobs rose from his seat and placed his arm around his wife's shoulders. "Maybe we'll just head home a little early," he said, giving her a gentle nudge. Caroline still didn't move. Not immediately, anyway. Part of her appreciated Tom's attempt to extricate her from this disaster, but she didn't like the tone of his voice. Rather than sounding earnest or concerned, his statement had come across as relaxed. Yes, that was it. There was a nonchalant quality to his statement, a "whoa, where did that come from, little lady?" tenor that she didn't like one bit. It was the voice of a man with a foot in each.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?